7 horrifying colonial prisons in Indonesia, claiming many victims. 1. Lor Ang Sowu Underground Prison, Semarang. One of the most notorious colonial prisons in Indonesia is Lor Ang Sowu. Built by the Dutch colonial government, this old building actually served as a railway office known as the Nederlands Indisch Spoorwegmaatschappij, NIS. When the Japanese captured Indonesia from the Dutch, they converted the building into an underground prison. Lor Ang Sowu boasts 2 notorious prisons: the squatting prison and the standing prison. Shaped like a bathtub, the squatting prison is only 50 centimeters high. As the name suggests, prisoners had to squat in the cramped chamber. As if that weren't cruel enough, the tub was filled with water up to the neck and then sealed with an iron bar. The standing prison, meanwhile, was 1 meter x 1 meter. It typically held 8 people. Even more horrifying, the bodies of prisoners who died from torture and starvation were simply dumped in the river next to Lor Ang Sowu. 2. The Fatahillah Museum Prison, Jakarta. Located in Jakarta's Old Town, the Fatahillah Museum bears witness to the brutality of the Dutch colonialists. While the upper level served as offices and courtrooms, the museum's underground was a prison. Specifically, the Fatahillah Museum's underground prison was often used to detain figures who opposed colonial rule. It is recorded that a number of heroes have languished in this prison, including Untung Surapati, Kut Nyak Dien, and Prince Diponegoro. In this underground chamber, approximately 500 prisoners were held. Furthermore, the ceiling was so low that anyone entering had to bend down. The prisoners were crowded together, starved to death, or even tortured to death inside. 3. Kalisosok Prison, Surabaya. Moving away from the capital, Surabaya also has a prison legacy that's no less horrific. It's Kalisosok Prison, located in the Krembangan area of Surabaya. The building once held a number of national heroes, including Sukarno, W.R. Supratman, and H.O.S. Cokro Aminoto. Built during the leadership of Herman Willem Dendels, this prison has a dark and stuffy basement. One narrow room, which could hold 20 people, was forced to hold 90. Furthermore, Kalisosok Prison was also used as a place of execution. Unfortunately, the building, which should have been a cultural heritage site, is now neglected and has even been converted into a boarding house. Interested in trying living there? 4. Sukamiskin Prison, Bandung. Built in 1918 by Wolf Schoemaker, Sukamiskin Prison was actually used as a prison during the Dutch colonial era. The prison, with 552 cells, was mostly occupied by Indonesian intellectuals who were considered dissidents. The underground cells were used for criminals considered dangerous. Sukarno was one of the inmates who once lived in this prison. He lived in a 3 by 2.5 meter room. His hair was cut nearly bald, and he was used as a manual laborer there. It was there that Sukarno wrote several books, such as Under the Flag of the Revolution, Indonesia Accuses, and others. 5. Benteng Pendem Prison, Cilacap. Next is the underground prison located in Benteng Pendem, Cilacap, Central Java. The building, originally named Kas Batterij op de Lantong te Cilacap, was once used as a Dutch defense against the Allies and the Indonesian rebellion. Surrounding Benteng Pendem is a moat said to be filled with crocodiles. Its purpose was to keep forced labours and prisoners out and prevent the enemy from entering. The prison guards at Fort Pendem were notoriously merciless. They did not hesitate to kill any forced labourers who resisted or were no longer productive. The same fate befell the prisoners confined to the underground cells. Their bodies were then dumped into the fort's well. 6. Fort Marlborough, Bengkulu. Unlike other prisons, Fort Marlborough was built by the British colonial government in Bengkulu. However, after that, it was largely used by the Dutch government. In addition to serving as a defense, it also housed a prison underground. One of the prison's distinctive features is the blood-stained walls of one of its cells. Once, one of the prisoners wrote in blood as a protest against Dutch rule. Not only did he write his grievances, but he also drew a map of the cardinal directions there. To this day, no one knows the meaning of this drawing. 7. Fort Rotterdam, Makassar. View of the interior of Fort Rotterdam in Makassar City, South Sulawesi. Wikimedia Commons Sanko. Finally, there's Fort Rotterdam, located in Dange City, Makassar. This fort was originally called Fort Jumpendang, built by the Gauatalo Kingdom in 1545. However, after being defeated by the Dutch, Jumpendang was taken over and renamed Fort Rotterdam. This fort served as a multifunctional structure during the Dutch era. It served as a defense, a spice warehouse, and, of course, a prison. One national figure who was imprisoned there was Prince Diponegoro. These are some of the prisons left behind by the colonialists in Indonesia. Besides those mentioned, there are many others, such as Fort Vastenburg in Solo, Jedung Merdeka in Bandung, Nusa Kambangan in Central Java, and so on.